Hi, it's Megan. Welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be sharing some ideas for when you have company coming into town, how to feed everybody, especially on a budget and in a way where you can still enjoy the company that you are having over. We don't usually host a lot during like the holiday season, but other times of year, especially in the summer and fall, where we live in Montana, is beautiful, and we have family and friends visit us often during those seasons. So I just wanted to share a few things that I kind of go through to make it easier on myself, make it very low stress, very easy to put together for when we have people coming into town and staying with us. So the first thing that you need to figure out is how many meals you're actually going to be eating, like at your home versus out or with other people or at different events or whatever. I kind of like to make sure that I know what's going on, what I will be responsible for in my home. And then once I get that number down, I can figure out what I'm going to make. So I always start with figuring out breakfasts. Usually if we have people staying at our home, we will provide breakfast for them every day. So that's one that's always like top of my list, making sure I know how many breakfasts that I need to plan for. And then I go through lunches. I like to keep things for lunches on hand. Lots of times we might go out for lunch if we're out doing an activity or something. And then dinners, again, depending on who is coming into town. Lots of the times we eat here at home. And so I'm responsible for feeding everyone. Or I like to take that on, I guess. I like to provide meals for people when they come to stay with us, just as something that I enjoy doing. I like cooking, so it's something I am happy to do. So I always like to take that on. So I make sure to know kind of how many dinners we'll be eating here at home versus going out either to a restaurant, or if we're visiting other family or things like that. I want to know how many I will be responsible for. Once I kind of know how many meals I'm responsible for, then I go through and figure out if there's any dietary restrictions that I need. I know when we have certain people come, we need to have like gluten-free and dairy-free options. When we have other people come, they have little kids and want like kid-friendly options. So it's just kind of whoever is coming, kind of take that into account if there's any dietary restrictions or like preferences. I also like to just take that into account to make sure that my guests feel as welcome and relaxed and loved as possible. Okay, so after you've figured out how many meals you're going to need for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, then I go through and I create a meal plan. So kind of for the rest of this video, I'm going to give you some tips and tricks that I have for each of the different meals. So for breakfast, lunches, and dinners. And then I'll also be sharing with you a few recipes that I have that are crowd favorites that are very easy to adapt to lots of different needs and preferences. So to start off with breakfast, like I said, if we have people staying in our home, I always provide breakfast for them. And one of my favorite things to do is to prep things ahead and to make things available so that whenever people wake up, they have breakfast available that they can make themselves or reheat themselves. So that way they don't have to worry about like making sure that they're up at a certain time, or I won't be like making breakfast all morning long if people are getting up at different times or whatever. And usually the night before, I'll let people know like, here's what I have for breakfast. If there's things that can be set out on the counter, I'll set those out before I go to bed. So I like to make breakfast casseroles. Those are always super filling, very easy to make ahead and very easy and still taste really good to reheat. I'll make sure to leave some links to some of my favorites down in the description box. Also, things that I like to make ahead to have out and available are muffins. Again, especially if you have kids that are coming, muffins are generally pretty safe. And if you followed many of my videos for a while, you know that lots of times I like to make muffins with monk fruit sweetener so that it's a little bit healthier and whole grains so that it sticks with you longer. So there are ways to make muffins healthier and more filling instead of just like sugar filled. So muffins are a super good thing to have available. Not something I can set out the night before, and so they're just ready. Even if I'm making something maybe a little bit more involved for breakfast if I want to, I can always have muffins out and ready in case someone needs something to eat before we actually are ready to sit down if we're going to eat all together. Another thing that is good to have out is just some kind of bread. Lots of times I will make either homemade bread or I'll make homemade English muffin bread, which is really good as toast. And I figure toast is something that pretty much anybody can have, especially if you have picky eaters. Toast is generally another thing that's pretty safe for most people. So I like to have that out. And again, the night before, I'll set out the toaster, set out the loaf of bread, set out the butter, so that those things are ready to go in the morning when people get up and want those things. And then I always have a variety of fruit on hand that, again, I will also put out for people to eat with as a side with whatever kind of breakfast they want. Other good things to have on hand are yogurt, granola, Those kinds of things are easy to make. Different parfaits. If you're a smoothie family, you can easily keep frozen fruit and juice and yogurt and whatever you need to make smoothies. Those are all kind of things that are definitely easy to keep on hand and can make good, healthy, like filling breakfasts without you spending your entire morning in the kitchen. So now I'm going to show you a couple of my favorite breakfast recipes that work great for company. For the cheesy bacon croissant casserole, you're going to need about 4 large croissants. These are the ones from Costco. You're going to cut these up and have them fill the bottom of a 9x13 pan. For your mixture, your egg mixture that's going to go over the top, you're going to need 9 eggs, 2 cups of milk, and then the original recipe calls for 1 cup of heavy cream, but I'm going to sub 1 cup of half and half. You're also going to add some onion powder and salt and pepper as well. And then after you have that all mixed together and your croissants in the bottom of your casserole pan, you're going to top it with a couple of cups of cheese, usually about 2 cups of cheese, and then 8 to 10 strips of cut up and cooked bacon. I'm just going to use these bacon crumbles, sprinkle that over the top, and then pour my egg mixture over the top, and you're going to bake it at 350 for about 45 minutes. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to cut up or rip up your croissants. These ones I just had frozen from some leftover ones that I had from Costco. They freeze great, and it's even easier sometimes to cut them from frozen. So I just dice them all up, put them in the pan. The original recipe calls for you to toast them, but I don't find that necessary, especially because I don't let it sit for a super long time, like overnight, like the original recipe says. I just put it all together and then bake it. So after you put the croissants in the bottom of your pan, you're going to create your egg mixture. So here I am just adding all of the eggs, and then I'm going to add in the milk and the half and half. Like I mentioned, the original recipe calls for heavy cream, but half and half subs just fine. I have also made it just with all milk, and that also is fine too. It's just not, doesn't taste quite as rich, but the flavor is still really good. And then you just saw I added the seasoning, so salt, pepper, and onion powder. And then I'm just going to whisk this all together until it's nice and fluffy. And I'm going to top my croissants with some bacon crumbles and about 2 cups of shredded cheese. And then I'm just going to pour my egg mixture over the top and bake it at 350 for 45 minutes. And here's what it looks like coming out of the oven. This is definitely one of my favorites. It reheats super great in the microwave and makes a great company breakfast for everyone to eat when they are ready in the mornings. To make these refrigerator bran muffins, you are definitely going to want to have a big bowl with a lid if you can. Definitely probably use your biggest bowl because this makes a ton of muffins, but the batter can keep in the refrigerator for up to a month, and you can just scoop out and make fresh muffins every week or every couple days or however you want to do it. So I just thought I would include that in the ingredients just because you definitely will want a big bowl. As far as the actual ingredients go, you're going to need 4 cups of bran flakes, 2 cups of bran buds, 2 cups of boiling water, which I don't have out here to show you yet. You also will need 4 cups of buttermilk, or you can do equal portions of regular milk with sour cream. So that's what I'm going to do today since I don't have buttermilk on hand. And then you're also going to need a half cup of melted butter. I just need to melt this. I haven't melted it yet. And then you're also going to need a half cup of unsweetened applesauce. I'm just using this home canned stuff that I have. And then you're going to need 2 cups of sugar. I am going to use 1 cup of regular sugar. I'm going to sub out 1 cup of the sugar for monk fruit. So I'm going to do 1 cup sugar, 1 cup of monk fruit sweetener, and that will just help not to spike blood sugars quite as much. Okay, you're also going to need 4 eggs, some vanilla, 5 cups of whole wheat flour. I just milled this myself this morning, so this is freshly ground whole wheat, but you can use regular whole wheat. You can also use regular flour as well. Whole wheat just holds up better for the longevity of the batter and just kind of helps the muffins have a better texture. And then you're also going to need 4 teaspoons of baking soda and a teaspoon of salt. While I'm heating up my water in the microwave to get to boiling, I'm going to measure out my 4 cups of bran flakes and my 2 cups of bran buds. This is a 2-cup measure, so there's 2 and there's 4. Here's 2 of the bran buds. Okay, now that my water's boiling, I'm just going to pour it over what's in my bowl. And I'm just going to stir it around. And we're going to let this sit as it cools back down to room temperature. And just every couple of minutes or so, you just need to go around and stir it again, just to try and make sure that all of the bran flakes and the bran buds are getting moisture, and you'll know that it's done when it's to room temperature and it's just a big like sticky mess. So I'll show you what it looks like when this has cooled off, and we'll go on to the next steps. Okay, so my bran mixture has cooled to room temperature, and this is kind of how it's looked after I've been mixing it together. So you definitely will need a giant bowl. Okay, so here's how the batter looks now that it's all mixed together. I'm definitely glad I went with my big bowl because it really does fill up most of the bowl. So I'm gonna get these ready in my muffin tin and pop them in the oven, and then I'll show you what they look like when they are done. They're definitely a very hearty muffin, and they will definitely keep you full for a while. You can top this, my favorite way to top it is with butter. It's also really good with honey as well, or you can just eat them plain also. They're not overly sweet, but they do have like a deepness to them that I really like. And I'm just using my 3 tablespoon cookie scoop, and that's like the perfect amount to fit into standard size muffin tin. So now I'm just going to pop these in a 375-degree oven for about 15 minutes. And here's what the bran muffins look like fresh out of the oven. Like I mentioned earlier, they're really good with butter or with honey, and they're also plenty good just plain. Okay, so after breakfast is lunch. With lunches, I am super basic when it comes to lunches. There's something that either we'll be eating out if we're out doing activities, or we're like kind of quickly stopping at home before we get back up and go back out to our next activity. So it needs to be something that's fast, something that's easy, and something that is adaptable. That's something that I like to think about, is what kind of meals can I be making, or things that I can put out that pretty much everybody with any kind of dietary restriction or pickiness level can find something that they want to eat that will be good for them. So with lunches, lots of times I will do just a big pot of soup. That's something I can make ahead, and then that's can be easily reheated. So soups are really easy. Sandwiches are also really easy. I always have a couple loaves of bread, a couple different kinds of lunch meat and cheese, and condiments to have on hand, so that, and small bags of chips and fruit. So sandwiches are always super easy and something that you can always just have on hand. That's, again, easy. Most people can make some kind of concoction that they will like. Salads are also kind of the same way, to have either salad kits on hand or just a bunch of different toppings to make your own salads are something that I have found that works really well for when you are entertaining company as well. And then the last thing, I also utilize leftovers. So if we have had like a big dinner the night before, when I make dinners, I always try to make plenty so that we never run out. And so whatever leftovers we have, I also serve those for the next day as lunch for anyone who wants leftovers. Usually I set those out in conjunction with one of these other things. And all of these things are definitely super economical, especially soups can be something that's very inexpensive that can feed a lot of people and be very filling and nutritional at the same time. So here I'm going to share a couple of my favorite soup recipes that are great for crowds. Here's what you need for the crock-pot tomato basil parmesan soup. You're going to need 1 cup each of diced carrots, celery, and onions. You're going to add that to your crock-pot with 4 cups of chicken broth. This is just frozen homemade chicken broth. And if you're interested, I should either have out a video with how to make homemade chicken broth or one that will be coming out soon. So make sure that you are subscribed if you want to be able to see that. For spices, to the main crock pot, you're going to add a teaspoon of salt, 1 bay leaf, half a teaspoon of black pepper, and some oregano and basil. You're also going to add a few cloves of garlic. You can do fresh, or I just have the jarred stuff. And then you're also going to add 2 14.5-ounce cans of petite diced tomatoes. With the juice, you're going to add all of that to your crock pot and let that cook all day. And then towards the end of the time, you're going to add a half cup of flour, half cup to a cup of Parmesan cheese, and then either 2 cups of half and half. I don't have any of that on hand, so I'm just going to do 1 cup of cream and 1 cup of milk. So again, here I am just chopping up my veggies. I'm going to start with my onion and do some celery and carrots as well. Something that's nice about all the recipes that I'm sharing today is that a lot of them share similar ingredients. So these are great things to put on your meal plan to have kind of close to each other because they have similar ingredients that you can use in all of the soups, but they all have very different flavor profiles, which I really like. So here I am chopping up the celery. I kind of forgot that I'm going to blend up this soup at the end, so I didn't need to cut the celery into like teeny tiny pieces. And you'll see that I kind of remembered that when I start to chop my carrots, that I chopped them in larger pieces because I'm going to puree again with my immersion blender at the end of the cooking time. During the fall and winter, I pretty much always have onions, celery, carrots, and potatoes on hand because most of my soups that me and my family like call for at least some of those ingredients. Usually carrots, celery, and onions, and then occasionally potatoes as well. There's lots of soups that have the potatoes in them. So I'm adding in my teaspoon of oregano, my tablespoon of basil. Then I'm going to add in about 2 teaspoons of salt, 1.5 teaspoons or so, and then my 2 cans of tomatoes as well as the garlic on top. And then I'm just going to cook that on low for about 8 hours. After it's about done cooking, I'm going to make a roux. I'm going to melt 1/2 cup of butter, and then I'm going to add in a 1/2 cup of flour as well until it gets like a thick kind of paste. And then I'm going to slowly add in my milk and cream mixture, or half and half if you have that as well. I did warm it up, and that helps it mix in with the roux a lot better. So I just cooked it for a minute or 2 in the microwave and then added it to my roux mixture and just kept whisking until it got nice and thick and smooth. And then after that, I'm just going to puree, or I'm going to take out my bay leaf, which I forgot to show you that I did add. And then I'm just going to puree my soup base with all the veggies until all of the chunks are gone, or however it gets to the consistency that you like. If your family likes a chunkier soup, you don't have to puree it as much. My family likes a smoother soup. And then I'm going to add the roux as well as a cup of Parmesan cheese. And then I'm just going to, again, use my immersion blender to blend it all up, make it all nice and smooth, and then just let it heat through for another, 30 minutes or so. And then your soup is ready to go. Here's everything you need for the creamy white chicken chili. You're going to need 1.5 to 2 cups of chicken broth. This is just my frozen homemade chicken stock. And then 1 to 2 pounds of chicken breast. I just have 2 large ones right here. You're going to need a couple cloves of garlic, an onion that's chopped, and then the original recipe calls for 2 cans of Great Northern beans. We don't like a ton of beans, so I'm just going to use 1 can today. And then you're also going to need 8 ounces of diced green chilies, which is 1 of the larger cans or 2 of the smaller cans. But I'm just going to use this jar of them and kind of choose how much I want. For spices, you're going to need salt, pepper, oregano, and cumin. And all these will go into the crock pot. And then after it's cooked all day and you've shredded the chicken, you're going to add 1/2 cup of whipping cream and 1 cup of sour cream that you whisk together until it's smooth, and then mix it into the chili. But after I put that together and stirred it all up, here's what it looked like. Here's what you need to make the chicken wild rice soup. You're going to need 5 cups of chicken broth. I just have this frozen homemade ones. These bigger blocks are 2 cups and the smaller one is 1 cup. And then you need about 2 medium chicken breasts. I just got one that's really big. To that, you're going to add 3 chopped carrots and 3 chopped stalks of celery. You're also going to add 1 cup of like a wild rice blend. You need 1 teaspoon of salt, which I forgot to grab, and 1/2 teaspoon of pepper. You need 1 teaspoon of poultry seasoning and 1 bay leaf, and you're going to add all of those things to your crock pot to cook all day. And then after it's been cooking all day, you're going to pull out your chicken to shred, and then you're going to mix 1/2 cup of flour with 1 cup of milk. And after you've whisked that together to get all the clumps out, you're going to add that to your soup after you've shredded the chicken, and then you're going to heat it through for another about 30 minutes to make everything all nice and creamy. So here I've already put in the chopped up carrots and celery, and I'm adding in some of the seasonings, the pepper, the poultry seasoning, and the bay leaf. And then I'm adding in my 1 cup of wild rice blend and cooking that on low all day. Here's what it looks like after it's been cooking for about 6 to 8 hours. I pulled out my bay leaf and I'm shredding up my chicken just by using my meat masher. When it's nice and tender like this, it's super easy to do. It kind of looks like mush, but it tastes really, really good. So here I added in my flour and milk that I whisked together. And then I'm just stirring it to kind of get it all incorporated and mixed in really well. The rice cooks really, really well. using this method, and it's nice and soft. And it tastes really good, even if it doesn't always look that great. So here's what it looks like all bowled up, and my family all really enjoyed it. Finally, we're getting to dinners. Dinners are something that can definitely take up like the most mental space, I think, and require like more planning, just because, I don't know, at least for me, I like to make dinners a little bit more nicer, something that we're all going to be sitting down together and eating. So I wanted to make sure that it's delicious and something that everyone will like, but I also don't want to be spending like my entire evening in the kitchen. So when I am planning dinners, there's two things I like to keep in mind. One, I like to make things that are customizable. So something where there's lots of different toppings, lots of different options so people can make exactly what they want. And then I also like to prioritize using my slow cooker, especially if we're going to be out during the day doing different activities or other things where we're not going to be in the home. I like being able to take a few minutes in the morning and put something in the crock pot, so that way when we get back from whatever we're doing and we want dinner, everything's pretty much ready to go. Okay, so here are a few ideas for some very easy crowd-pleasing dinners. I've made these for family reunions before, when we've had company before, when I've been a guest somewhere before. These are all things that are definitely major winners. So the first are Hawaiian Haystacks. This is basically rice as a base, and then you top it with all different kinds of good yummy toppings. So we like to do chicken. I make a gravy out of like cream of chicken soup and chicken broth, and cheese are kind of like the main ingredients, and then you can put whatever other kind of toppings you want on them. So my family likes tomatoes, bell peppers, green onions, coconut, pineapple, mandarin oranges, the crunchy chow mein noodles, coconut, did I say that already? So kind of celery, people like, so pretty much any other kind of toppings that you want. And that's something that is very easy for people to make kind of whatever they want. If they need it dairy-free, it can be dairy-free pretty easily. You can make just like a slight different variation of the gravy that doesn't involve any cream. If people are low carb or keto, I have just got riced cauliflower before and served that as their base instead of the traditional rice. And that's definitely one that is a crowd pleaser and really adaptable to whatever the needs are. Some other things that go over really well are taco bars. So you can either do like cafe rio chicken, which is one of our favorites that works really well. Sweet pork also goes really well. You can just serve rice, tortillas, tortilla chips, hard shells, kind of whatever you want, and people can make whatever they want. You can serve rice and beans with those things, and then provide different toppings like salsa, guacamole, avocados, different veggies, cheese, salsa, hot sauce, pretty much any of those kind of things. You can just set them all out and people can make exactly what they want. Baked potato bar is also something that people can easily adapt to what they like and is really inexpensive. I like to make baked potatoes in the crock pot. You can pretty much just throw potatoes in a crock pot, set it on low all day, and they'll cook. So you don't have to be home using your oven. So that's a good way to kind of cook them throughout the day and to keep them warm. And then you can just have various toppings. So you can do butter, cheese, sour cream, bacon bits, green onions. Also, if I've made chili, lots of times I'll pull out chili to top those as well. I've also done like a chicken pot pie filling to top baked potatoes before. And all of those are also very inexpensive and ways to add a little bit more protein and bulk to a baked potato bar. Pasta bars also go over really well, have a couple of different like shapes of pasta, have a couple of different sauces, a couple of different protein options. We usually do like some kind of chicken, some kind of meatball, usually red sauce and a white sauce, maybe like a pink sauce or a pesto. And then we usually have like some breadsticks and a salad, and that's pretty easy. Again, most people can figure out something that they would like. You can easily sub gluten-free pasta if you have any gluten-free people. And again, very easy and something that you can like keep your sauces and your proteins just heated up in crock pots. So that way when you get home, all you have to do is cook pasta. And if you choose pastas that take less time, like an angel hair or a spaghetti, then even like your pasta cooking time won't even be that long. And then lastly, one that always goes over really well is like some kind of pulled meat. So lots of times we do pulled pork or pulled chicken with barbecue sauce. You can get sugar-free barbecue sauces, like keto style barbecue sauces if you have those kinds of needs, or just a regular barbecue sauce also work really, really well. I'll make sure to leave my link for my favorite pulled pork recipe that you can do in the crock pot down below. It tastes fantastic. And then with the pulled pork sandwiches, we always have different kind of buns. I usually just get hamburger buns of some kind. If I have little kids, I like to get the King's Hawaiian rolls because they're so much smaller and so they're easier for them to eat and aren't quite as wasteful as getting just like a full bun. Or if people just want smaller sandwiches, that's also a good option. Lots of times we also serve mac and cheese with this. Mac and cheese is something that's very easy. I can make ahead of time and put it in like a casserole dish to make a mac and cheese bake, and then I can just pop it in the oven to reheat when it's right before it's time to eat. We also like to serve cornbread, veggies, fruit salad, pretty much any kind of side work really well. And most of those things you can also prepare ahead of time so that you can just pull it out of the fridge and it's ready to go. Okay, and then lastly, I also just like to have snacks on hand. If we're gonna be home for all day, I'll put some snacks out in the afternoon, just in case anyone gets kind of munchy between lunch and dinner time. Some things that are inexpensive that are good to have on hand are popcorn. It's super inexpensive, is really easy to make. We have a Stir Crazy popcorn popper, and just use popcorn kernels, and it tastes super, super good. So that's easy. You can make a lot of it, and it can go pretty far for very inexpensive. I also like to always have fruit and some cut up veggies, and usually some kind of homemade veggie dip, whether that's ranch or dill dip or some kind of actual dip. I like to set those out as well for healthy options. I also will pull out the muffins. If people didn't finish them at breakfast, I'll pull those out for snacks in the afternoons as well. And then I also like to pull out just like some sliced cheese or cheese ball and some different crackers or pretzels or those kinds of things. Again, very easy to pull out, very easy to prep ahead of time. I have a couple of different like veggie trays or snackle boxes that I can prep things and put all the things in the different sections, and then I can just pull it out when I need to. Whatever we don't eat, I can close back up, pop it back in the fridge, and then we can pull it out the next day for snacks again. So those are a few ideas that I have for making the cooking part, the eating part of hosting company over the holidays a lot less stressful, and things that you can do for pretty inexpensively. Leave me a comment down below if you have any other ideas that have been major hits when you have been hosting company, or if you have been hosted by somebody, what are some of the things that you have enjoyed that they have done for you. Make sure that you give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you like this kind of content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week with a new video. Bye.